Nokia once controlled nearly half of the world's mobile phones, but one decision cost them their throne. This is the story of why Nokia ignored Android and how it led to one of the biggest falls in tech history. In the early 2000s, Nokia was the undisputed king of mobile phones. Models like the Nokia 3310 and N series were global phenomena, known for durability, reliability, and dominance. They weren't just popular, they defined an era. But then came a shift. Smartphones. Apple's iPhone launched in 2007, and Google released Android shortly after. Suddenly, the game wasn't about hardware alone. It was about software, apps, and ecosystems, and Nokia didn't move fast enough. Before Android and iPhone, Nokia could do no wrong. In 2007, at its peak, Nokia had over 40% of the global mobile market. CEOs and tech analysts praised its design and scale. They made hundreds of phone models for every price range and region, but all that strength was tied to one thing: Symbian, Nokia's proprietary operating system. It was the backbone of every smartphone Nokia made. It had been incredibly successful, but it was about to look ancient. Android was different. It was open source, free for manufacturers to use, customizable, and supported by a massive app ecosystem driven by Google. Unlike Apple's closed iOS, Android could be used by anyone, from Samsung to HTC, from Motorola to LG. This opened the floodgates. Suddenly, smartphones could innovate faster, run more apps, and adapt to users' needs in ways Symbian couldn't match. Developers flocked to Android because it was easier to build for and could reach millions of users. So why didn't Nokia adopt Android when it had the chance? First, Symbian was deeply entrenched. Nokia had invested billions into it. It didn't want to abandon its own platform, but Symbian quickly became clunky. Slow updates, poor touchscreen support, a confusing interface, and developers abandoning it for Android and iOS. Nokia did try to build something new. They developed Linux-based systems like Maemo and MeeGo, which initially showed promise. But delays, internal conflict, and lack of clear direction meant these alternatives never reached the market in time. In 2010, Nokia brought in a new CEO, Stephen Elop, a former Microsoft executive. Shortly after taking over, he faced a crucial choice: go with Android or find another solution. In public, Elop insisted the company evaluated Android, but chose Microsoft's Windows Phone instead. Why? Because Nokia believed that Android was already dominated by one giant, Samsung. Elop feared that entering the Android world late would just make Nokia another Android OEM fighting for scraps against a Samsung that had already built momentum. He argued that to carriers, the companies that decided which phones to sell, Nokia needed a third ecosystem alongside Apple and Android, something distinct to negotiate with them effectively. Choosing Windows Phone was bold, but it came with huge risks. Unlike Android, Windows Phone had a tiny app ecosystem. Developers didn't want to build for it when Android and iOS already had millions of users. Nokia's decision frustrated programmers who had invested years in Symbian development. Nokia's mobile units started losing market share fast. Meanwhile, Samsung's Android phones were exploding in popularity across Europe, Asia, and even the US. Nokia needed apps and consumer excitement that Windows Phone simply couldn't deliver. If Nokia had embraced Android early, around 2009 or 2010, it could have stood toe-to-toe with Samsung and Apple. Nokia's hardware design was legendary, and pairing it with Android's powerful software ecosystem might have kept them in the smartphone race. Analysts and fans argue that Nokia's engineers could have customized Android and created something unique. Instead, the decision not to adopt Android, driven by fear of competition and loyalty to strategic partners, turned out to be one of the biggest strategic missteps in mobile history. By 2013, Nokia's smartphone market share had collapsed to single digits. The Lumia line, which used Windows Phone, failed to attract enough buyers. And in 2014, Nokia's mobile division was sold to Microsoft for $7.2 billion, a stunning fall from its days of dominance. Microsoft tried to revive the brand under its own banner, but Windows Phone never took off. By 2016, Microsoft abandoned the effort entirely. Nokia's reign as a mobile powerhouse was over. So what does this story teach us? Nokia's case shows that innovation isn't just about past success. It's about recognizing when the world has changed and adapting quickly. Fear of competition, loyalty to old systems, and slow decision-making allowed rivals to overtake a company that once seemed unstoppable. Today, Nokia lives on, but not as a mobile titan. The brand survives under different companies and focuses more on networking equipment than smartphones. What could have been if Nokia had embraced Android early remains one of tech's biggest what-ifs. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the biggest tech decisions of the decade, hit like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments. Would Nokia still be on top if they chose Android?